Hello and welcome to the Rowover podcast. Unfortunately, Phil's away today, so today I'm your host, Ben, and today we're joined by Rory Cruickshank, Junior
All
Worlds
right.
competitor, ex-Brookes rower, and most importantly to our discussion today, the co-founder of Allmarkone.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
So we'll get started right away with how you started. So how did you sort of come up with Allmarkone? Like, how did it all get going?
Yeah. So, I've been coxing since 20, I'd like to say 2014 at this point. And then at the end of 2015, mid to end of 2015, my mate Rich and another mate called Alex uh, decided that we actually just wanted to make like a big Instagram account. The guys well before your time, but like the guys at Walton had like an Instagram account that nobody knew was run by them, but had like
Mhm.
4,000 followers, and we were like, "That's pretty cool. We want
Yeah.
to do the same thing." Uh, but instead of like taking other people's content and reposting it, we were like, "Oh, we'll just post our own stuff because we've all got cameras." So we started up All Mark One, based on the fact that we all had a Mark One camera, so we were all Mark One cameras.
Ah.
So we were like, "Sweet, that'll do." Aiming to change the name in the future to like UK rowing photography or something, but that name change never happened.
Mhm.
And then yeah, we just photographed and posted what we knew best. So that was mainly like small junior events to start with. Then we started doing Nat School stuff. Then we did some Coop stuff and then some World stuff, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then as we moved into uni and then out of uni, we were being able to keep the junior stuff going whilst also expanding into under 23s and senior stuff as well.
So that kind of ties into my next question a little bit, but how did you kind of balance all the photography and running a bit of a business alongside rowing and also obviously going to uni, going to school at the same time?
Yeah, so balance at school was relatively easy because the business was so small.
Hmm.
It took 1 to 2 days a week to manage in total. So we were able to do it late nights in the weekdays or like weekends and stuff like that. That was all really easy. The biggest struggle being like a under 18-year-old trying to run your own business is actually like trying to get anywhere. None
Hmm.
of us lived in London, so actually traveling to any sort of event unless we were going already was basically impossible. Um, but as I then moved into uni and the rest of the team kind of grew up as well, we kind of spread the load a little bit more evenly. Of course, at university you've got more time than you do at school, but I mean, I was with you lot at Brookes, and the time pressures during a rowing event are a bit intense. So actually, like, it was really great to have a team both as big as we have at All Mark One, but also like as good. There's no way that the business would still be here now if it wasn't for the rest of the team. Because in my last year at Brookes, I basically did very little
Hmm.
at All Mark One. Like it was a bit intensive, like just on the rowing side. So yeah, like without Rich, Lucinda, Wilf, George, etc. Like we've got quite a big team. They basically took over running the company for the year, which was really key.
In terms of competition, who were you looking to either emulate
So
or?
yeah, so at the time we just kind of wanted to be as big as Ian Weir was. His Instagram is still absolutely huge in the rowing space. He was kind of the account to go to when people started like really spending time on social media, and that was really key.
Mhm.
Um, so that was kind of always our aim. But the big difference is that the likes of Ian and Al and Ben, who are all people that we looked up to significantly, they're all one person at the end of the day. So our like big selling point is that we're a team of currently about 10, which
Yeah.
means that we can go to multiple events over the UK and internationally all at the same time. So this year we were at Head of the Charles in October, but we still had a team here in the UK able to do stuff at the same time as well, which was really important. Or last year when we went to Ghent Regatta in Belgium, but we were also able to do all the events at Dorney that same weekend as well. Makes a big difference. So like competition wise, that's kind of who we looked up to when we started. As it started getting quite intense and people were able to see that rowing was able to be put as like not just a side hobby, it was actually like able to be a proper business. We saw the likes of We Row come into it. Angus from We Row started up and kind of went full time, full intensity, straight ahead. And as an adult doing it full time compared to us, we were school and then university students doing it very part time. It's very difficult to like keep that level. And then like it was just one of those things where you just have to last it out, and everything's got to be like long-term goals and long-term processes rather than just like the short-term wins, because you can like spend money to get short-term wins, but to get like that long-term consistency, you need to build. Like the big thing at Allmarkone is that you have to build a community. Like the community is the thing that's going to help you go long-term. So, and you can't just buy a community. So that's like the big focus. And I think we've done that quite well, to the point where nowadays there's a bit of a gap between us and the rest of the people in the market. There are a lot of people in the market. Whether people know about every single one of them or not, like, is different. Because there's just so many big rowing accounts now that someone popping up with 1,000 followers can get a little bit lost in the woods. So like we stand out a little bit as a difference, but there are a lot of people as like single photographers that go and take amazing photos, but because we're like the gap in the middle is now no longer being filled where we used to sit. So I think although we have some competition, it's very different to how it was.
And in terms of, I guess, approaching the competition, or actually, let's backtrack a little bit. Have you overtaken that sort of first competitor that you came up with when the Walton account from when you were younger?
That is a great question. James Pickering might have the answer to that. He ran it at the time. Oh, yeah, massively. Yeah, it had like 2,500 followers. But we were like, that's the one that we want to get as big as. Like those lads are really cool because they've got 2,500 followers, and all of us had like 300 followers on our own accounts and stuff. So it was pretty mad. But yeah, like all of those type of things, and like the big part now is that the number of followers tends not to matter as much. Like, of course, it's like a dick swinging contest with like the number of followers you can get, but actually like it's the amount of engagement you get on everything, and the number of people that like save your post and comment on your post and share your post and all those type of things means so much more than the number of people that have hit the follow button.
And I don't know if I've mentioned this on this podcast before, but this whole podcast setup, I guess, is a little bit to do with my marketing course that I'm doing at the moment. Something that I've sort of done research into for this is basically what the customer base is for like rowing social media pages, and looking at things like World Rowing, which you probably imagine has got the majority of people that row potentially across the world following. It's literally 130,000 people. Like there's not a massive base. Like British Rowing's like 60 something thousand.
And that's double the size of the British Rowing membership at about 30,000 a year. So like, the number of people that have like a British Rowing membership is like 30 to 35,000, I think.
So things like engagement is obviously very, very important. And so in terms of, I guess, your aims going forwards, how would you like integrate engagement and things like that into sort of how you're going forwards? How many people you're getting, not necessarily following, but engaging and buying your products, I guess?
Yeah. So when we started, our aims were, we wanted to overtake all of our mates' accounts. That was like step one. Then step two is we wanted to hit 10,000 followers so we could get the swipe up on the stories. That was a huge one at the time. We know competitors that I won't sit and name that purchased followers so they could get that swipe up, and I think that led to the demise of a lot of people's accounts, because you just lose your engagement ratio as soon as you start buying unengaged followers. And then like our other aim was that we wanted to be like the big photographers at the big events. So whether that was a boat race event or a British rowing event and all those type of things, we wanted to be like the guys to go to. That's kind of changed a little bit now with the whole community aspect. Of course, like it would be really good to go and be the official guys at the boat race, but actually, like Row 360 do a great job there, and we'd prefer to kind of focus on what our community are interested in. You mentioned it tons in your first episode with Phil, but
Mhm.
actually, like as we start going into both last year and this year, like the boat race fixtures are becoming to the rowing community as much of a big thing as the actual boat race itself is.
Mhm.
Like externally, the boat race will never be matched because there is no way that the BBC is going to start funding a big race of, you know, another big club, whether it's like a Molesey Leander race or a Brooks Newcastle race or whatever. Like
Mhm.
the BBC are not interested in that. So like that will never be matched. But actually within the community, we've noticed that us spending a little bit more time on the fixtures and less time on just the boat race crews makes a huge difference.
Mhm.
Um,
And I was, I
but
guess,
yeah,
so, like talking with Jono last week as well. Like dueling in America is also quite a big thing, and whilst in terms of media and things like that, it's not that big of a deal. Like the bigger clubs and some of the bigger matches are important for people to know about because that's how the rankings are done for IRAs. And I guess that's just quite an interesting aspect that kind of adds a bit to regatta season over in America for unis particularly. But
yeah, it definitely adds like that extra level. I'm trying to think if there's any other sports that are a bit like it, but there's lots of things where like something that happens in the winter can then move through to regatta season, which
hmm,
some people might be like, oh yeah, actually we don't want, like, we know that we're good at short distance racing and we don't really want our like fixture season to affect it, but actually like it gives a reason for spectators and fans and stuff to kind of follow the whole way through the season. It's kind of the one thing that rowing is not great at, is the whole like fan side and getting like fans behind it. You get tons in America. You do
hmm,
actually have like fans of boat clubs, but in the UK, you're either an alumni of the university that you support, or you
yeah,
live, or like even those that like live in the town. You're pushing it a little bit to say that they're fans as well.
yeah. I think
Um,
even to an extent, like alumni, like some people kind of just do rowing, finish rowing, and then get on with it. Like I know there's plenty of people who their biggest fan is still their mum. Like it's very much like a people come down and watch the rowing because someone they know is in that boat as opposed to any other
yeah,
reasons.
for
And
sure.
something I was researching a bit and looking up today was the Power 8 sprints in 2018
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
kind of why that didn't quite go to plan. But in terms of the actual setup, like they'd set it up in a way that meant almost you could support your city in quite a big way. Like,
You were kind of meant to like go and support the city that you're closest to or that you live in and all those type of things. But
hmm,
actually, what ended up happening in I haven't been able to look over it yet. I've seen that you've posted it. I was gonna have a look at it later. But in my opinion, it was always based on like that everyone in the rowing community, it was no longer a team that they knew that they could go and support. And if
hmm,
they didn't know one of the athletes in the boat, therefore they felt quite distanced from the whole thing. And they were a bit like, yeah, I don't know any of the clubs. I don't know any of the people. So I don't really know who to support. And then
hmm.
people that weren't into rowing were a bit like, oh, this is cool. I'll give it one shot. But that meant that overall support was probably pretty low.
Yeah. Something that kind of leads on to that as well is one of the biggest issues with Power 8 sprints was the lack of commercial sponsorship. Like there was nothing backing it up. It was pretty much completely funded by British Rowing. And
Yeah.
you said you had a couple like thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think like sponsorship in rowing is always like a difficult one. Um, on paper, it should be really good. On
Hmm.
paper, the amount of money that people are asking for the amount of social media attention they can get, and the amount of boat space, trailer space, like consistent. kit sponsorship, etc., but also the number of people that may then go on to like work at the business, because rowing is a, whether we like it or not, and like inclusivity in rowing really needs to keep getting better day after day. But at the moment, like rowing's big positive selling point is that it can, I'm trying to think of a good way to word it, but it's like there are lots of people in the sport that will go on to have very high paying, high skilled jobs. It tends not to be a low skill sport. So lots of large corporate businesses should, on paper, be very interested in it. You should also be able to be like, actually, a lot of corporate sponsors that have the decision making ability are probably more likely to have rowed than not rowed, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I don't know whether there's just like a lack of information within the sport on how to pitch for sponsorships properly, or whether there's just like not the interest because other crews aren't sponsored. Therefore, a big sponsor's not going to come in and take the risk of doing one, because maybe there's an underlying thought of, if no one else has done it, is there a reason behind it?
The thing with that is that Henley Royal Regatta has obviously got a big long list of companies that consistently support them every year. Like Gemini have supported the boat race for a few years now, haven't they?
Yeah.
And is it Investors? I'm not
Oh
sure.
gosh.
There's one for the
interactive investor do the
interactive investors. That's it, for the lightweight boat races. It's like they're all sort of companies that are branded on the front of people's all-in-ones, like stuck there in people's heads. And even kind of within college rowing in Oxford, there's a few clubs that literally there's like 20 people in these clubs, but they've got sponsors on their all-in-ones. Like I know Lincoln, the club that I coach, is sponsored by Revolution. I think it's Worcester College is sponsored by BP. Like these tiny little clubs have got quite big
Yeah, I think
sponsors.
it was like Christchurch or something was sponsored by Savills at one point, or something like that. It was one of the two.
And it
But
does
yeah,
make you think, why have other clubs, like even big uni clubs, big or anyone like Leander, why have they not got sponsors attached to them in that way?
multiple sponsors as well. Like you look at even like relatively similar size, like similar may be the wrong word, but like um Formula Drift in America, relatively small sport, but the number of sponsors that you can get for each one is massive. And whether that's just internally, like, and you just get like, okay, if we sponsor this high performance club, we're probably going to get a lot more sales of our boats, our blades, our trailers, our towing vehicles, etc. Just off other people within the sport. Even if you say that the sport is really closed off, like something like Formula Drift is, or even stuff like Sail GP, like you tend to want to be like a fan of sailing to go and watch the event.
Yeah.
That's where it differs from like the huge sports like football, rugby, F1, golf, those type of things. Like those ones you don't necessarily actually have to like be involved in the sport to understand and support.
Yeah. But even things like darts, you'll see darts players on the TV and their polo shirts
just
are
littered
coated in sponsorships. So it is interesting why that's not something that's come across.
Yeah. I think it's going to have to take one or more of the high performance clubs to just like take a bit of a jump, try and convince to get some huge people on board and just take the sport to a bit of a new level. Because once the money starts coming in from elsewhere, it all kind of fits. Like we were talking about it recently of just like if you look back at cycling like 40 years ago, like it was still very amateur, and sailing pre America's Cup and Sail GP was also very amateur and stuff like that. And it takes either a like both the mix of a large event with a reason for people to compete at a high level. Of course, we've got Henley, but throughout the rest of the year, it's really important to have something, whether that's like whether the calendar's so full that you have to compete at the same events that you usually would do, but you get points for doing so, and all of those stack up in a leaderboard and you get like a prize at the end of it. But there's kind of got to be a reason why these big clubs need the money. And
Yeah.
then like the second part is they've got to go and get the money and start feeding it back into the sport, whether that's through charity programs or whether it's just through like getting people involved and convincing people to go to their local rowing club.
Yeah. Or even hosting new events and things like that, because
Yeah,
there's not actually that many big events in the UK. And that was something as well that we sort of brought up.
there aren't. It's like the interesting part is like everything's still very weekend based, and that works incredibly well for those that are in university Monday to Friday, and it works really well for those that work Monday to Friday or in school Monday to Friday. But what happens in the summer is there's times, you know, you've got Henley Women's and Henley Royal, which have kind of proven that you can do events longer than just the weekend.
Yeah.
And whether there's another gap in the calendar there to do another week-long event, but post, like either you do it post university deadlines or you focus it on a different group of athletes. Like you kind of like aim for stuff like that.
And I jumping back to college rowing again, they have 2 yearly week-long events. Both Oxford and Cambridge have sort of an event just before Easter and an event in the middle of summer, both sort of week-long events where there are hundreds of spectators, thousands of spectators in the summer. I saw somewhere there's like 20,000 people that go and watch it on the bank, apparently, which is
go and watch
insane.
summer eights. Yeah.
And that's kind of like, and that doesn't just bring in rowers as well. It's like a lot of people just from Oxford, for Oxford Summer Eights, like come down watch it just because it's a good event to watch, and it's like the
it's a
only
massive
thing
part.
happening.
It's kind of why people bid for world rowing events, and it's why regattas still take place in slightly weird areas. It's all about like the movement of, like, on a really basic term, like going back to your marketing degree, like it's all about like trying to move money from one group of people to the other.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that's like you take Oxford students that want to go down and support their college, it's a really easy way of getting a student at Christchurch College that has nothing to do with rowing giving money to the Pembroke Boat Club stand for like a pint of Pimm's or something.
Yeah.
Like that's money. There's no point, like, if the community stays too closed off, you end up just passing money around each other. What you need to make sure that like external investment comes in, whether that's from sponsorship or whether that's from like normal advertisers, or whether it's from like spectators that are happy to like come and bring money to a stand at Dorney because they're a parent, or are like just like a Pimm's tent at Oxford College Bumps, or whether they like come to Henley and they go and buy like a picture of Pimm's from the regatta enclosure or something. Got absolutely nothing to do with rowing, but they just want to come down and do it. But it means that the money like keeps flowing in the right direction.
And I guess we could sort of move on a little bit now to how we sort of think regattas are going to grow in the UK in the future. Like what sort of things. So live streaming is one thing that's grown in the last 3-4 years, I'd say. Like I remember just before, I think it was just before lockdown at Bucks, it was literally someone cycling along with a camera, and if you go and watch back their footage, it's like super shaky, like no one really knows what's going on. But last year it was a lot better, I'd say. So just little things like that, it's growing a lot.
Yeah, it takes a big step from the event to like take a bit of a jump and decide to put a lot of their money into like live streaming their event. Both because, as we saw at Nat Schools last year, they didn't live stream the event, because if you live stream it, it kind of convinces people they don't have to attend.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that means that then you don't get car park fees, you don't get people going to people's stands, you don't get people buying from the coffee and the food stalls, all those type of things. But actually, like, it's all about making the sport like bigger and bigger. And the point of the live stream's got to kind of convince people that they want to go and experience it in person. That's
Yeah.
kind of like the really important bit. So just because you watch F1 on the TV does not mean that if someone was like, oh, do you want a paddock pass for Silverstone F1? You'd be like, oh, no. I can see turn 11 better from my TV than I can from the like £5,000 paddock pass ticket. You're
Yeah.
like, no, of course I want to go. I want to experience it. That's kind of the big part that rowing's like, it's like the hump that we've got to get over at the moment, is that as live streaming becomes bigger within the regattas, people will be like, oh yeah, I want to watch the live stream because then I can see the start and I can see the first 500 and then the K and the 1500. Whereas if I stand there, I'll only see the finish. Like, correct, but you've got to kind of like find a bit of both, and whether the regattas have got to run a live stream and a live commentary over speakers or something. There's got to be a reason for people to watch the live stream one year to then convince them to turn up the year after. That's the big part. Like, you watch the Henley live stream and you're like, "Whoa, that's sick! I want to go. I want to go and see that."
Yeah, and with that in mind as well, if you look at things like football, obviously biggest sport in the UK, like comfortably, I'd say. A lot of people watch football religiously on the TV. They'll go to the pub, watch football on the TV in the pub. They'll watch it. They'll go around their friend's house and watch football. But a lot of people might not necessarily actually go to the football stadiums to watch the football there.
Yeah,
and football teams are often probably quite comfortable with that, just because those people are still buying shirts that say people's names on them.
Totally. If there's another way to monetize the live stream viewers, like whether they then go and buy merchandise from the team, or whether they like support the team another way, or they support the event another way, all those type of things. At the moment, rowing doesn't have that, so you've got to kind of convince people to turn up. But if there's a way to then turn the live stream into another way of bringing in revenue for either the event or clubs or all those type of things, then it makes total sense. Yeah.
And if that would mean trying to get rowing involved in something like BT Sport or Sky Sport or whatever it is, that could be a way forwards, would you think?
Yeah, totally. So like, usually in smaller sports, you tend to offer up your coverage to someone. So you'd go to the likes of Sky or BT and be like, so I'm sure like Henley Royal have probably done stuff like this and been like, you can have our coverage for free, whether it's like a 1 hour highlights reel or whether it's like the full live session. You can have it for free. You can put it on your stuff. You can have the advertisers in it, and we'll push people to you, because the value for them, like the value for the event, is the number of people that like go and view. Like, you get the stats back and you're able to go to new sponsors and all those type of things. And it takes that jump from an event to be like, we make good enough content that you should access it.
Yeah. And I know for a fact, for things like Henley, they post it on YouTube every year for free for anyone to watch. If they'd put up like a £5 paywall to watch it, I'm sure I'd still be happy to pay to watch all the videos to see.
Yeah, I think if it was one of the ones of being like, the race, after the race is finished, it'll go on YouTube for free forever. But if you want to watch the whole week live, you've got to access it behind this paywall, or something as simple as you've got to sign up for the mailing list for Bremont, Aston Martin, Moen, Chandon, whatever. Like, that way you can then go to a sponsor and be like, we will get you 50,000 signups to your sheet. That is worth X amount of money.
Yeah.
Will you pay that? And then someone may be like, you know what, actually, if you're the likes of HelloFresh or something, you're like, yeah, I want to get like 50,000 people signing up for a free box or something. This sounds like a great deal.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Starting every Henley live stream with, hello, welcome to Henley, brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, you got to go download Clash of Clans or what is it? Yeah, War Thunder of War or something like that.
We're just ticking out of time here, so we'll
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
skip on to the Q&A. A lot of these have got
Here, here we go.
a bit
I've
of
been worried
overlap,
about this,
but it was actually very popular. It was very popular. We had a couple super fans.
I've heard about these super fans, Ben. I've heard about them.
um, we'll start off with a very cheery one. What's your biggest regret in rowing?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, I think like regrets are really hard because I think if you like honestly regret something, it's probably because you think that everything that happened afterwards also wasn't worth it. Like a really easy answer is like once I came around like the 1K mark at Brookes, kind of got my head down. We were coxing down a 1500 and this narrow boat just pulled out of like mooring in front of me and I just went into the back of it, like completely just did not see it. And like an easy regret is that like I didn't look out and I didn't see it first because it's totally easy to dodge. But if I had done that, there's a chance that I may have ended up like not noticing something 2 years later on where I was no longer in a 2012 aluminium empacker and I was in like there were times where I was sat in like a 2018 carbon one instead. I wouldn't want to be going and hitting anything in one of those.
No.
So like big regrets is pretty hard. There are lots of things that I like wish we had done differently, but probably nothing that I'd regret. I lost like came like second in a B final at Junior Worlds by about half a bow ball. That was pretty
That's
rough.
tough.
That was pretty rough. And of course, like in my last year at Brookes, went on not to win Henley, which was also pretty rough. But like, there's always good sides and bad sides to everything. So
Uh, Next question. Other than rowing in the quad, what is your highlight of your rowing career and what made that moment so special?
the quad was a great time, Ben. I've been sent so many photos of that quad after watching it back. That quad, you should put up a picture of this quad if you're doing a video podcast. Put up a picture. But in that quad, we have a Henley winner, an under 23 European bronze medalist, an under 23 gold medalist, and an under 23 world champion record holder. And that is all in the 2C, isn't it, Ben? So
uh,
yeah, no, the quad was good fun. No, I think like breaking the Bucks record in my last year at Brooks was good fun. Going 5:31 down the track was pretty mad.
and I think Hayward said multiple times like he really enjoyed that four and
Yeah.
was a bit frustrated when it got broken up before Henley.
Yeah, I think like our Bucks setup was probably one of the quickest that any university's been able to make up to that point. Like the squad then kept getting quicker and quicker and quicker. But that year at Bucks when we did 5:31 in the 8, and then the lads went on to go and break the Cox 4 record the day after as well. And we were sat there in second place, chugging along, trying to beat UL in the second four was actually mad.
Would you expand to other sports?
Yeah, other sports is really key. It's something that we've looked at tons, and it's definitely at the top of the list of things that I want to do. But as I mentioned at the start, like the big selling point of Allmarkone is the community aspect, and to get the community right, you've got to understand the sport and the community in it. So for us to expand into sailing or horse eventing or something similar to rowing, we need to find another team of 3 to 4 people similar to me, Rich, Lucinda, etc., that understand the sport, understand the people in the sport. You know, you and I can look at a photo of the GB women's 8 or the men's 8, and we can probably name every single person in it.
Yeah.
If we were to move into another sport, I'd need to go and find the same people.
Yeah. When a personalized Allmarkone and Oxford University lightweight women navy caps coming, and what's your favorite Allmarkone stash item?
Yeah, so we do actually have some pretty cool. Like we've got a restock of our signature navy baseball caps coming pretty soon. Along with we've got like a new bleached, washed red one, so that'll be really cool. But we've actually got some new like when it comes to favorite merch. One of my favorite ones, just out of sight over here. We got some new demos of a cool collaboration that we're doing with Unbreakable Female Athlete. JC and Emma over at University of Iowa in America are doing like great things over there, and we're working with them on a new merch design that hopefully will kind of give back to the rowing community a little bit more than we have in the past.
Is Allmarkone a monopoly? I guess you've kind of answered that one previously.
um, yeah, I kind of guess Allmarkone is, to be honest. There are lots of like big players in the space, and I think we're most definitely not a monopoly when it comes to like content creation. There are lots of people that create a lot of really cool content in rowing, whether that's the likes of like Norden going and creating some really cool content for Cambridge Uni and the lightweight boat races, or Row 360 making like cool content for the boat races and like World Cups and World Championships and stuff. British Rowing put out some cool content as well. And of course, like a lot of clubs continue to put out great stuff, whether it's at like Thames or Molesey and Imperial and clubs like that. But when it comes to like when you really niche it down and you're like UK domestic rowing event sales of personal use images, then yeah, I guess so.
A very niche market.
That's it. It's like, yeah, it's like asking if B&Q is a monopoly, and maybe they are to like spring washers size 16 mil to 18 mil or something like that. Like maybe they are.
What have you most enjoyed about Allmarkone, and what are your biggest lessons that you've learned?
Um, yeah, I made some notes on this one earlier. Not because I more because I think we kind of asked about big risks and like what stuff we've learned from. Um, there are times where like like the best points are always like Henley Royal. Like you end up absolutely emptying yourself, but it's basically 6 days of being around like a really good like environment. Financially, it's horrendous at Henley Royal because if you think at Bucks, for example, on day one, athlete A races the 8. Day two, athlete A races the coxless 4, and day three they race the pair, and they want to go and buy a photo of them in the 8, the 4, and the pair.
Yeah.
At Henley Royal, day one, athlete A races the 8. Day two, athlete A races the same 8 down the same course. Day three, athlete A races the same 8 down the same course for the third time. Like the number of photos we sell is pretty low. But actually, it's the most fun that we have all year because it allows us to kind of do something a little bit different. We get to go and follow clubs. We get to go and get like the whole boating experience and the winning experience, and the reactions of people winning is something that cannot be topped. And being able to like get access to that, both like being able to see it standing on the bank, but also being the guys that are trusted, like the photographers, like the Allmarkone team of guys and girls that we have. When you're wearing like something with Allmarkone on it, or your camera's got an Allmarkone sticker on it, people kind of like let you into the boat tents, they let you into their group chats, because we're not going to like go and out a team. Like if a team are like, oh, our race plan is this, we're not going to go and whack it online. Like that kind of ruins the whole point of the sport. So they like, once you have that understanding and everyone else in the sport understands the same thing, it kind of means that we get a little bit more access. We're trusted a little bit more than everyone else. So like that's definitely something that I've learned, and it's one thing that we need to make sure that we never screw up, is that like level of trust. As soon as that goes, it takes forever to rebuild. So
I guess you won't be going to the Leander after party with your camera as much then.
No cameras at after parties are ever allowed. That is most definitely not okay. I'm trying to think like any other like big things that we've learned. Head of the Charles was like a huge learning experience for sure. Like that was a massive one where it was like we spent a lot of money, and I got on the flight coming home very, very deep in the red. Like we had lost a lot of money at the start. Like by the time I got on the aeroplane to come home, we were not doing great.
Hmm.
But it was kind of like having that like trust the process moment. Like it's said
Yeah.
all the time, like actually when you're an athlete or whether you're a coach or all those type of things, everyone kind of always says it. But it's quite difficult to then put it into place somewhere else. But actually, like it was spot on. It was just like, right, we know what we do is really good. We know that we can beat the competition out in America as much as we can beat them here in the UK.
Yeah.
We just got to trust that that's what happens. And it was literally the case of in the UK, the photos are up either straight away or by that evening. In America, the photos are up 2, 3 days after the event.
Hmm.
So when I got on the aeroplane with very little in terms of online sales, I was a bit like, we've really screwed it up. But in reality, no one even knew that photos were online yet because they weren't kind of ready for the fact that the photos went online before they crossed the finish line during their race.
Hmm. I remember when I used to play football years ago, when I was like
Nice.
probably when I was about 10 years old. Used to go to a football tournament and there'd be a photo stand there where you'd show up, give the guy a fiver, and he'd print out your photo there. Have you ever thought of doing sort of in-person prints like that?
Yeah, so they used to be the official Nat Schools photographers. Used to be like lads in vans that
Yeah.
turned up and did it all. Um, but actually, it's just like a really nerdy reason why we don't. Like all of us at Allmarkone are really, really like we're pretty perfectionist in the way that we do things,
Okay.
and all of our photos that are printed on the website go to a factory of ours in Coventry that go and print it out on extremely good photo paper. They're packed up by the team there really well on some like insane printers and then shipped out to you. And actually, that in our head, without spending near on 6 digits, we're not going to be able to afford to do something to that standard. And I
Yeah.
don't think any of us were up for like losing the quality of the image for the sake of someone having to then also carry it around for the entire day.
Yeah.
Like it's something that we'd love to do. It's in the back of my head. They do it at like horse eventing things and at golf tournaments. They turn up with like an HGV lorry that kind of expands, and there's like a big banner that comes out. Um,
So we'll put
and
that one as for the
it's got like
future.
printers in it. Yeah, exactly. And if we could make it work 6 days a week, it would be a no-brainer. But
Mhm.
with rowing events happening 2 days a week at a good point, the cost of us getting like a lorry and a race trailer and putting in massive, massive like 5-figure photo printers in the back of it doesn't really make financial sense. That being said, we've made a lot of decisions that don't make financial sense over the years. So, you know,
Favorite event to represent Allmarkone at?
the first ones that come to mind are like either boat race events or like the heads of the river where we go and do like a live stream. Those are great fun because we're able like that's where like Allmarkone is the person on show. Like the rowing's really cool, but we kind of put ourselves in front of the cameras sometimes, which is great fun.
Yeah.
Um, Nat schools is a huge one just because like the interest from junior rowers is always huge.
Hmm.
We get like we have like random chats with athletes on the start pontoons whilst like their coach is probably screaming on the bank, being like, "Fucking concentrate," those type of things. But um, like those are really good, and like the interest from junior athletes is really key because of the amount of like, as you mentioned, like once you leave university, number of people that just like turn over within the sport and just decide to not come back to it
Yeah.
is still really high. And it's one thing that British rowing and world rowing and ours are really trying quite hard to change, but like that's going to be the case for at least the next 5 years. So we've got to make sure that every year the next set of J14 to J16 athletes know about us every single time. So like Nat schools and getting our name out there is really important. And then the last one's still like Henley Royal. It just has like something different about it. You can like it's a little bit similar to the feeling you get like when you're wearing like the Brooks Helly Hansen jacket walking around Bucks Regatta.
Yeah.
Like it's that similar type of vibe where like everyone that passes you has like whether good or bad thoughts has a thought about who you are.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same at Henley Royal. Like everyone knows like we're there.
They're the guys that are taking the good photos.
We have a bigger team than everyone else combined usually.
Yeah.
Like, I think last year our team was like 10 or 11, and that's like most people bring one. So we add up like to about half the press area.
I'm surprised you've not mentioned sort of following GB teams around like junior worlds, senior worlds.
Like it is really cool. It's one of those things that like is still really teetering on the edge of like we need to make it a consistent thing for it to really pay off.
Yeah.
To be fair, like the most exciting parts about that is the bits where we have the most control over things. So it's like the training days at Caversham where we can kind of go and do like all the crew profile photos, and we pull out all the lights and we take some really cool headshots of everyone, which you then turn up to Italy with, and like everyone's Tinder account is the photos that you've taken like 2 weeks earlier. We'll give a big shout out to Robbie Prosser there. Thanks for using our photos, mate. But like those events are really cool. But it would like I think the really important part is that we make those like a little bit more consistent, and we do those year on year, and we know then the amount of content that we're able to produce for it.
I heard Rory won gold in the World's Riz Championships.
Oh dear. Who was that from? Mr. Pryor?
Would you expand outside of photos and videos? I guess I mean into sort of general content creation.
Yeah, I think like it's kind of chats like a lot of these have been chats that have been had. I'm sure you know Eamon Glavin from America. He does some great content creation stuff. He's really switched on. And both him and I are really jealous of GCN and GTN, like Global Cycling Network. Like those guys there have really aced it. Just by like starting off making average content about cycling, and then growing it to not only constantly creating that same now very cool high value content about cycling, but also having like the GCN app that you can go and watch all the cycling events on as a subscription. Like that's really cool.
And it's not uncommon to see like GCN jerseys out on the roads as well and things like that.
Yeah, it's huge. Like stuff like that would be really cool, is to try and like grow it into a bit more of a brand. But I think like cycling's a little bit different in the sense that all the live streams tend to go to like the likes of Eurosport or Sky or something, and GCN are able to just pay for that stream and then put it up on their network. With rowing, we would also have to make the stream and do the stream and send the stream to us. Like until there are more events doing, as we mentioned, like paywall streams. That's the kind of one where if it was like, Wallingford Regatta do it for £2.50, Henley Royal do it for £5, Met Regatta do it for £2.50, Henley Women's do it for £2.50, etc., etc. Or for £10 a year, you can sign up to Allmarkone Live and access every single one of them. So that type of thing would work. But until events start like paywalling it, there's probably not a huge market behind it. Other things that we'd want to do are in the works. I think like on your notes earlier, there was a bit about like, should someone start a rowing business? Like should someone like go into it? And like realistically, as much as it sounds cliche, nowadays, like right now is like the easiest time to start a rowing business. Like the ease of getting mass views. Like 3 days ago, Scott, who used to cox with me and Ben at Brookes, got 7 million views on one of his rowing TikTok videos. And it is mad. And it's like, actually, that's not because the video was insanely high quality. It's not because he has like an mental skill that no one else has. Scott just has consistency and like that drive to constantly put out videos.
And I remember just before lockdown, that's when Scott started posting stuff on TikTok. And at
Yeah,
first, everyone was like, TikTok's a bit cringe. And then suddenly Scott took well, like 200,000 views, and everyone was like, oh, hang on a minute. That's pretty
yeah,
cool.
yeah. It was so true. Like I think the big part is anyone can go and like nick an idea. And
Mhm.
it's one thing that we have to be really careful of at Allmarkone is that rowing photography event company is not a like unique idea that once one person does it, no one else can do it again.
Yeah.
Anyone could go and do it. The difference is like an idea can be stolen, but like passion and execution of a project can never be stolen. Like that's what's going to separate a good business from like a great business that's never like that's always going to be able to keep chugging,
Mm.
is that type of thing. um so like for us, we've got to keep building to protect ourselves. We've got to keep building those barriers to entry, whether it's by buying better equipment or making easier to use websites or by helping reduce cost or by becoming a cooler brand. All of those things mean that realistically my job is still safe, which is kind of the aim.
Yeah.
We want to make cool stuff, but we can't make cool stuff if we go broke. So we gotta keep like the business going.
Would you get back into coxing? Do you think you could balance that with what you're currently doing?
I doubt it. I really doubt it. I think there'll probably be a time where like I go and get like a single or something. I go and buy like a slightly overly balls to the wall single, and I'm that like dude with
The
like a
carbon
boat
wing
that's
Empacher single.
slightly
Yeah.
far too good for me, going up and down, getting in the way of someone on the river. But I probably wouldn't cox again. I think I was really happy with how fast our boats were when I finished.
Mhm.
And I was like, you know what, I'm probably not going to find that same speed again. And
Yeah.
that's quite fine with me. In my first year at Brookes, I was sat in the ladies' playdate for like 2 months, and I was like grinning the entire time, even when the likes of Glover, Swarbrick, and Axon were basically telling me that I was useless. I was like, oh my god, I'm having such a great time. Uh, but as like that last year with like, yeah, we um went on to win Bucks and then win Met and like did pretty well at Marlow. I think we came second to the ladies play at Marlow. Like stuff like that was like really cool. And I was like, yeah, quite happy to tick the box there and be like, that was pretty good.
So a red box is not on the bucket list then.
It always was, but I think I've had to draw that line there. You never know.
Never know.
I'll be
Uh,
the super sub on the Sunday when someone gets ill. Oh dear.
approximately how much free speed does an Allmarkone sticker add to an Empacher shell?
A lot. We so the Allmarkone sponsorship program basically stopped. Like we still sponsor Reading Uni and we still sponsor Trentham. But the big point is that we kind of gave people stickers, and if they used the stickers on the boat, they got free photos from the event. And that was really good. But actually, I want to get to the point where we just give people cash, whether it's like 5 grand, 10 grand, like they just get cash. In which case, the stickers go on the boats, and then you can use the money to spend on what you want, whether it's a launch or a new boat or a new set of blades, or you go and buy like our photos or something.
Yeah.
That's my aim. So we've kind of shrunk down the program so that we can hopefully get back to that point in the future. The good part is nobody's taken off any of the stickers, so everybody adds some sort of free speed. I think it's pretty cool, and I think it adds to their boat club as well, because as we mentioned earlier, part of the whole sponsorship thing is maybe there's something in someone's head being like, if no one's sponsored them yet, is there a reason behind it? So if they've got their boats littered in our stickers, maybe some sponsor would be like, how much do we have to pay to have all of those taken off and to put ours on instead?
Yeah, because no one looks at an F1 car and goes, no one's looking at an F1 car and says, oh, that doesn't look good, even though they're absolutely littered in sponsors and adverts. Like, they're still cool looking cars. So hopefully we can get that.
Yeah, the Tideway Scullers
coated in
Wargrave 8 was really cool. They had like the carbon rear wing Felipe, and I think we put like 10 Allmarkone stickers on that boat alone, and it looked sick.
I think the coolest sticker I ever saw was when I was like a J17, a Wallingford head, and I saw a Hot Wheels sticker down the side of a boat. I thought, that's the one.
That's sick. I want a Hot Wheels sticker on my boat.
What is the best seat in the boat, in Rory's expert opinion, and why is it the 7 seat?
The 7 seat is a great seat to be sat in, not gonna lie. But then again, Jack Pryor was not very good at sitting in the 7 seat, so like it doesn't work for everyone. No, to be fair, like the bow pair are usually pretty like undersung. You just end up making them, like you said, a head race, and by the time you go through the start line, they've rode 2K by themselves, tapping up and stuff. So, yeah, the bow pair are good ones, especially if you like. One of my years at Brookes, I went down the track with the Chinese national team, and Ollie Morgan in the bow seat, I think is what it was. And poor Ollie Morgan did so much tapping and backing it down at the start line because he was the one that was able to speak fluent English in the bows. No one else could.
And then this last one, which I'll probably cut out.
Nice.
From Max Thompson.
Oh, dear.
Are the shower rumors true?
Oh, mate, I watched a TikTok earlier that reminded me of this. It was every guy has gone through the phase of measuring how tall an iPhone is, and it sounds pretty similar to that.
And that's a wrap.
I answered that one pretty well. I could probably stay in.
Thanks very much for having you on, Rory. It's been a pleasure as always. And I hope Allmarkone and anything you do in the future is very fruitful and you have a good time with it.
Yeah, no worries, Ben. Good luck in the Grand this summer. We'll be seeing you race. That'll put some shivers into some people's spines.